Hello again. Welcome again to the workshop of Wood Spun Round. This is Doug. It is so good to have you with me again today. You're seeing a piece of wood there that you don't normally see in the turning shop. A piece of construction pine. This is a piece of 2x6, just squared off. And I'm measuring to find the center line on this particular piece along with the grain. As I look back, I don't think I was even thinking about whether I was with the grain or against the grain at the time, but needed to be with the grain. I was doing it correctly from the very start. Also got to put that center line on the ends. I'm going to actually put it between centers on the ends and turn it that way. You'll see here in just a minute. And it does make quite a noise as it goes around. That whirling noise, it sounds like a propeller spinning around at about pretty close to 2,000 RPMs. But my customer had asked me, she saw two of my turn cars, and she needed 4. And so I'm turning these 2 to go along with the other 2. You'll see all 4 of them together at the very end. Right here, we're just getting prepared. As you can see, I'm trying to mark not only the center line of the board, but I want the center line of that edge as well. Simply because I want it in the center as it turns around. I need both sides of this to be pretty close to identical. And so that's what I'm doing here, just getting everything marked out, ready to go onto the lathe so that we can do some turning. All that is done. We got it on the lathe between centers. It's tight. I've checked to make sure I'm clear. Here we go. I'm going to use a 1/2-inch bowl gouge on this pretty well from beginning to end. At the very, very end, I'll use a skew just to get the nubs down small enough that I can get them off. But for the most part, it's a 1/2-inch bowl gouge. I've stopped and thought, it'd be real smart if I give myself some lines here. So I'm just kind of drawing the car out. This is going to be a Beetle style car. They're pretty. It's a pretty simple idea as far as drawing it out. It's one I'm familiar with. The Beetles were what I learned to drive on way, way back in the ancient days. And so the center line's already there. I don't need to do the bottom, but as you can see there, I'm drawing out the outline of one car, and that's in pencil. It's a dark pencil, but you can barely see the outline there. And I'm thinking to myself, it sure would be nice to see that much better. Well, I happen to have a fuchsia Sharpie sitting right next to the lathe. Here it comes. We're going to go over that outline with that Sharpie, just so I can see the line better and you can see the line better as well. There, you can see it. I can see it. And so I'm going to be working this 2x4 down to that line. If you were in the shop, you would hear that spinning wood going around and around, even to the very end. You can see here I've got about 2/3 of it turned out. I'm just working on that front end. I've kind of slowed my cut speed down because I don't want to get overzealous here. It'd be easy to cut into that car and put a strange design line into it. Just taking a look here to see what I got going on, where I need to go. Um, Finish up that hood area and get it cleaned up and ready to go. I did take a few passes or there were a few times when I would stop the lathe, make one little tiny cut, and stop the lathe again, just to see what I was doing, making some little adjustments here at the end. I don't show you all of that, but as you can see, I can see the line and I can cut down to the line pretty well without too much trouble. The little transition between what would be the windshield and the hood, I make a couple of refining cuts there, as well as on the back end and then on the nose as well. But you're seeing the process, and here I'm working on getting that nub on the front end cut down so it can be separated here in a few moments. I'll do the same thing on the back end. Checking things out, we're looking pretty good. A little refining cut there. Trying to get some of my tool marks out so I don't have to sand quite so much. There is a bit of sanding that is done. Some will be done under power, some will be done by hand, and you'll see a little more, well, you'll see a little bit of each one, not very much. There's a refining cut there in the that transition area. That's the toughest area. It's the tightest curve, and so it's the toughest area to get. Like I say, I want to get that as smooth, that cut as smooth as possible all the way around so that I don't have as much sanding to do. These things are quite a pain to sand by hand, and if I do it mechanically, it tends to make them flat, and I don't want that flat. I want that round edge that, as you can see on the top there, I want it rounded over. It shows that it's turned that way. If it's flat, it's either been sanded too much or it's been cut out on a bandsaw. I do them that way. If I need to do a production run of them, I'll probably cut them out on the bandsaw. It's a little quicker. This is a whole lot more fun though. Working on those nubs, you see they're getting smaller and smaller. Still using that 1/2-inch parting gouge, or excuse me, 1/2-inch bowl gouge. I'll get these nubs down pretty small. In fact, I'll cut them off with a utility knife. It seems like it's the front one that comes off pretty easily. The back one, I hit a tough piece of grain, and it was a booger. I still got it off with the utility knife, but it was tough. Doing just a little bit of sanding on the edge, and then I'll sand the flats while it's still on the lathe. This is the only use this drill gets. That sanding mandrel stays in the drill all the time, and I sand from 100 up to 320, I believe it was. A little bit of hand sanding in that little transition area. Can't quite get the drill mandrel in there to get that. and it's just too tight. So I sand up to it, and then the little transition right at the very bottom of that, I do it by hand on both sides. And this looks like a strange looking car at this point. But remember, I had that center line in there. And because I've sanded them, the two sides, there's not much of a remnant of that line left. I fully intended to leave a remnant, but I didn't. So I grabbed a stick, and as you just saw, I put a new center line in there. So we're all sanded up. Let's get those nubs down, get that final preparation done on those nubs so I can cut them off. Have those things pretty thin at this point. Get my tool rest out of the way. Let's take the turning off of the lathe. Get the utility knife. Watch how easy this one goes. Oop, it's gone. In the back end, it just fought me. Honestly, it was not any bigger than the front one was, but it sure wanted to fight me. Sorry about my face shield getting in the way. It just I had to bring it into my body to get some leverage on it. But it does come right off. It doesn't take too much. And I could have taken it to the saw and cut it off at the saw. I don't know. I start doing something one way, and usually I want to finish it that way. The front one popped off so easy. I just didn't understand why this back one was so hard. But it was just a hard piece of wood, piece of grain. I'm showing you there. I'm going to whack that in half. There they are. That's both of them. Cut in half and drilled for the axles. I do just a little bit more sanding on them, and that's about the end. Putting the axles in and the wheels on is the end of it. And you see the two that I just made as well as the two other ones. Thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already subscribed, I'd appreciate a subscribe and hit that like button just to let me know that you enjoyed it. This is Doug at Wood Spun Round. Until we meet again, I hope you're able to spin them round.